Amma Boteng couldn't stop smiling as she got ready for the Christmas party. It was her first big family gathering in over a year, and she wanted it to be perfect. Living in Accra, Ghana, she had spent the past few weeks preparing with excitement. The kitchen had been full of laughter, flour, and sugar as she baked cookies with her little 5-year-old daughter. Yes, I loved helping even if she made a tiny mess every now and then. Amma had carefully picked out a festive dress, something bright and cheerful, hoping it would match the joy she felt inside. This holiday meant more than just presents and decorations for Amma. It was her chance to show her family that despite all the challenges she had faced, long workdays, tight budgets, and trying to balance motherhood, she was doing well. She wanted ESI to feel proud of her mom, to see that even small victories were worth celebrating. Amma imagined the smiles, the laughter, and the warm hugs waiting for them. She held ESI's hand tightly as they walked out the door, excitement bubbling inside her. Little did Amma know that the evening, which started with so much hope and happiness, would take an unexpected turn. The warmth she anticipated from her family would soon be replaced by tension, and she would face a challenge she had never imagined. But in that moment, with the scent of cookies in the air and ESI's laughter beside her, Amma felt ready for whatever the night might bring. Amma stepped out of the taxi and looked up at her cousin Kojo's house. It was enormous. Lights twinkling on every corner, wreaths on the doors, and a huge Christmas tree glowing through the windows. The sound of laughter and music spilled into the street, and for a moment, Amma felt her heart lift. She squeezed Isai's hand, excited to finally join the festive chaos she had imagined for weeks. As they walked in, the warmth of the party hit them immediately. Relatives hugged and kissed, children ran around with tiny gifts, and the smell of roasted meats and sweet treats filled the air. Amma smiled, thinking this is exactly what Christmas should feel like. Isai's eyes widened as she spotted the towering tree and colorful decorations, and Amma felt a wave of happiness seeing her daughter so excited. But then something changed. Tai proudly held up the little ornament she had made herself, a tiny star painted with bright colors. A few relatives glanced at it, then exchanged quick smirks and whispered to each other. Amma caught the look, subtle but sharp, and a small knot formed in her stomach. She tried to brush it off, telling herself it was probably nothing. Maybe they were just joking. But the unease lingered, a quiet shadow behind the laughter. Amma held Isai close and whispered, "It's beautiful, baby. Everyone will love it." Sai beamed, unaware of the subtle tension, and Amma tried to focus on that smile. She wanted this night to be joyful, a celebration of family and love. Yet deep down, a small voice told her to pay attention, that something wasn't quite right. And she didn't know then just how true that feeling would turn out to be. The party looked perfect on the outside, full of warmth, music, and cheer. But Amma couldn't shake the feeling that this Christmas evening was about to test more than just her patience. It was about to test her strength as a mother. The room was buzzing with excitement as everyone gathered around to open gifts. Amma watched Isai's little hands tremble with joy and anticipation, ready to unwrap the presents she had waited for all year. For a moment, everything felt perfect, the laughter, the colorful wrapping paper, and the sparkle in Isai's eyes. But then Abina, Amma's cousin, leaned in with a smirk and whispered loudly enough for a few others to hear, "Why even bring her? She's too small to understand anything. Maybe she should have stayed home." Sai froze. Her little face crumpled, her tiny lips trembling as tears welled up in her big brown eyes. Amma felt a sharp pain in her chest. It wasn't just a mean comment. It was an attack on her daughter, on all the love, effort, and care she had poured into raising her. Amma's blood boiled. She could feel her hands clench at her sides, the anger rising hotter with every second. Amma knelt down slightly, putting a hand on Isai's shoulder, whispering, "It's okay, baby. Don't let them ruin your fun. Let's just enjoy the party, okay?" But even as she tried to calm her daughter, she could feel the weight of the words hanging in the air. Other relatives snickered quietly, glancing between each other, and Amma realized this was bigger than just a simple insult. They were trying to make Isai feel small, worthless, invisible, and Amma wasn't going to let that happen. Tai wiped her eyes and tried to smile, but Amma could see the hurt lingering. That moment sparked something inside her, a fierce, protective fire she hadn't felt in a long time. This wasn't just about one cruel comment. It was about showing her daughter that she was loved, respected, and capable. Amma knew she had to handle this carefully, but she also knew she couldn't let it slide. The laughter in the room continued, unaware of the storm building beneath Amma's calm exterior. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. That Christmas evening, what started as a joyful celebration had already begun to turn into a battle, one she was determined to win for her little girl. Amma felt her fists clench under the table, her nails digging into her palms as she tried to stay calm. She took a slow, deep breath, forcing herself to smile, even though her chest felt tight with anger. Leaning down to Yi, she whispered softly, "Ignore them, baby. Let's enjoy the party our way." Sai nodded, her little hands gripping her mom's, but Amma could see the hurt still lingering in her eyes. She tried to focus on the festive decorations, the music, even the smell of roasted chicken and sweet pastries. But it was impossible to ignore the whispers and quiet laughter from the relatives. One cousin muttered about how ESI's school projects were too childish, while another scoffed at the handmade ornament she had brought. Amma's jaw tightened. Every mocking comment felt like a punch, not just at ESI, but at all the love and care Amma had poured into raising her daughter. Amma glanced around the room. People were smiling, chatting, and pretending everything was fine, but she could feel the subtle tension growing. The words were sharp, small cracks forming in the cheerful facade of the party. Amma knew she had a choice. She could let it slide and let ESI feel small, or she could act, but carefully without losing her temper. She took another deep breath and forced herself to think. This wasn't about arguing or shouting. It was about standing firm, showing her daughter that being calm, confident, and prepared mattered more than reacting in anger. She studied the room, noticing who had been the harshest, who had sneered, who had whispered behind Isai's back. Amma felt a spark of determination. For Isai's sake, she had to turn this around. She wanted her daughter to see that courage didn't always mean yelling. It meant protecting yourself with dignity, showing strength without losing control. That night, Amma realized, would test her patience, her wit, and her heart. And she was ready to face it, no matter what it took. Amma slipped away from the noisy living room and found a quiet corner, her mind racing. She pulled out her phone and quickly texted her closest friend, Nana Amma, explaining what had just happened. Her fingers trembled slightly, not with fear but with determination. She realized that reacting angrily wouldn't help. This needed to be smart, calculated, something that would protect ESI, teach the family a lesson, and make them rethink their arrogance. Sitting there, Amma took a deep breath and thought through every insult, every sneer, every mocking whisper she had just endured. Her mind started piecing together a plan. She would not yell. She would not beg for respect. Instead, she would use poise, intelligence, and undeniable proof of ESI's achievements to turn the room upside down. Amma smiled slightly to herself. She knew she could do this. She remembered the little things she had kept tucked away. ESI's awards from school, the charity reports from projects she had helped with, and even the local newspaper that had featured ESI's good deeds. These weren't just pieces of paper. They were evidence. Evidence that ESI was talented, kind, and respected, something her relatives clearly hadn't expected. Amma's heart steadied as her plan formed. She would let the truth speak louder than anyone's insults. She would show her family that their words couldn't define her daughter's worth. This wasn't about revenge. It was about dignity, pride, and teaching ESI that strength sometimes comes from preparation and confidence, not anger. By the time she returned to the party, Amma felt a new energy inside her, calm but powerful. Every step back into that room was deliberate. She was ready. Tonight, the mocking whispers would meet the truth. Tonight, her daughter's worth would shine brighter than any insult. And Amma knew deep down that this moment could change everything. Not just for ESI but for the way her family would see her from now on. Amma walked back into the living room, her smile warm and calm, but her eyes sharp with purpose. She held ESI's hand gently, letting her daughter feel safe and loved. The room was still buzzing with chatter and laughter, but Amma could sense the subtle tension that had begun to build the moment she returned. It didn't take long before another jab came her way. Her aunt, speaking just loud enough for some to hear, tried to belittle ESI again. Amma didn't flinch. Instead, she took a slow breath and replied calmly, her voice clear and confident. Actually, ESI just received the top award in her class for her art project. She also helped organize a charity drive for children in our community, and her school principal wrote a letter recognizing her efforts. A hush began to fall over the room. Eyes shifted, whispers slowed, and a few relatives exchanged glances that said, "We didn't expect this." Amma continued, carefully pointing out small, impressive details about ESI's accomplishments. How she had spent hours helping others, how her teachers praised her for responsibility and kindness, how her handmade gifts reflected creativity and thoughtfulness. With each word, Amma could feel the energy in the room changing. The smug smirks were slowly replaced by surprise and even subtle guilt. Her relatives had underestimated her and her daughter, assuming that ESI was just a small child who couldn't achieve anything meaningful. But now the truth was undeniable, and Alma's calm confidence was impossible to ignore. Sai looked up at her mother, her eyes wide but shining with pride. She had never seen Alma handle a situation like this, and she could feel the quiet power in her mom's words. Alma realized that she didn't need to shout, scold, or humiliate anyone. Her composure and the facts themselves were enough to make her family rethink their behavior. By the time Alma finished speaking, the room was noticeably quieter. People were listening. The laughter had faded, replaced with attention and a touch of awe. In that moment, Alma felt a small victorious thrill. The evening was starting to shift, and she knew she was finally gaining the upper hand, not through anger but through poise, strategy, and undeniable proof of her daughter's worth. Alma took a deep breath and looked around the room. The laughter and chatter had quieted, and curious eyes were now on her. She held Eli close and said softly but firmly, "I want to show you something important." Everyone turned their attention toward her, sensing that this wasn't going to be like the other conversations. From her bag, Alma pulled out a neatly folded school newspaper. She opened it to the page with ESI's smiling face, holding a certificate she had earned for her outstanding community work. "Look," Alma said, pointing to the article. "This is Isa. She helped organize a school charity drive, and she's been recognized for her creativity, her kindness, and the way she leads by example." Then she reached for another folder and held up a local charity report. "This shows her work with children in our community," Alma continued. "Isai spends her time helping others, raising funds for those in need, and even teaching younger kids art and reading. This is who she really is." The room went silent. Eyes widened, jaws dropped, and even Abina, who had been sneering and whispering just minutes ago, looked pale and speechless. The evidence was clear, undeniable, and powerful. No one could argue with it. Sai wasn't just a little girl. They had tried to dismiss her, laugh at her, and make her feel small. But now the truth was right in front of them, shining brighter than any insult. Sai's small hand squeezed her mother's, her eyes sparkling with pride and relief. She had felt the sting of ridicule, but now she saw her mother stand tall and defend her with grace and undeniable proof. Alma's heart swelled as she realized this moment wasn't just about proving a point. It was about showing her daughter that her worth could never be measured by someone else's jealousy or cruelty. For the first time that evening, Alma felt a calm power settle over her. The room had shifted. The mocking whispers were gone, replaced by stunned silence. Everyone could see that ESI was talented, compassionate, and respected, and that her mother would always stand by her, protecting her with love, intelligence, and courage. The room went completely quiet. The laughter, chatter, and whispers that had filled the space just minutes ago disappeared as everyone absorbed what Alma had just shown. Relatives who had mocked ESI, who had sneered and whispered behind her back, now looked uncomfortable, even ashamed. Their faces were pale, eyes darting around nervously, unsure of what to say. Alma didn't smile triumphantly or gloat. She stood tall, calm, and composed, letting the truth speak louder than any angry words ever could. Her gaze swept over the room, not with anger but with quiet confidence, showing that she wasn't here to argue, she was here to make a point. Respect, she silently declared, wasn't automatic. It had to be earned, and anyone who tried to tear others down would eventually face the truth. Slowly, murmurs of apology began to ripple through the room. Aunts and uncles shifted in their seats, some muttering, "I'm sorry," under their breath. Even Abina, who had been the loudest in her insults, looked caught off guard. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out at first. The evidence Alma had presented left no room for excuses. A few family members tried to justify their behavior, saying it was just teasing or harmless fun, but Alma's steady composure made it clear this wasn't a joke. Sai watched her mother wide-eyed, and something shifted inside her. She realized that strength didn't always mean yelling or fighting. It could mean standing firm, speaking truth with calm confidence, and letting actions and facts prove your worth. Alma had shown her daughter exactly that. The room remained tense, the earlier mockery now replaced with respect, some shame, and a few scattered apologies. Alma could feel the power of the moment settling in, not for revenge but for truth and dignity. She had defended her daughter, shown her worth, and reminded everyone that cruelty and arrogance had consequences. That Christmas evening, the family learned a lesson they wouldn't forget. Respect isn't given lightly, and love is always stronger than insults. Si's small face, which had been full of worry and hurt earlier, slowly began to brighten. She looked up at her mother, eyes wide with awe, and a shy smile crept across her lips. For the first time that evening she felt proud, not just of herself but of the way her mother had handled everything. Amma had stood tall, calm and strong, turning what had started as humiliation into a lesson in courage and dignity. I realized something important in that moment. Standing up for yourself didn't always mean yelling or getting angry. Sometimes it meant being smart, prepared and confident, letting the truth in your actions speak louder than words. Her mother had shown her that strength could be quiet but powerful, that resilience could shine even in a room full of people who had tried to make her feel small. As the family murmured their apologies and the tension in the room slowly faded, Isai felt a warmth in her chest she had never felt before. She had been hurt, yes, but she had also witnessed a kind of bravery that left a mark on her heart. She realized that she could face insults, criticism or jealousy in her own life, and she could do it with grace and dignity just like her mother. Isai's eyes sparkled as she hugged Amma tightly. "I want to be like you, Mommy," she whispered. Amma hugged her back, smiling, her heart swelling with pride. That Christmas evening wasn't just about presents or decorations. It was about lessons in courage, self-respect and resilience. By the end of the night, Isai's shyness had been replaced by a quiet confidence. She understood, in a way only a child learning from a strong parent could, that her worth wasn't determined by others' words. The laughter and joy of the party had returned, but this time it felt different, stronger, warmer and filled with respect. Isai knew she would carry this lesson with her for the rest of her life. No insult, no cruel word, could ever take away her dignity as long as she believed in herself and the people who loved her. Days after the Christmas party, Alma could still feel the echo of that night in her mind. Some family members whispered about what had happened, quietly shaking their heads or avoiding eye contact when she walked in the room. Invitations stopped coming for a few relatives and honestly, Alma didn't care. She wasn't interested in pleasing people who had tried to put her and her daughter down. What mattered to her was that she had stood up for Isai. She had protected her child, shown her worth and set clear boundaries. Alma remembered every moment of the evening, the fear she had felt at first, the anger, and then the careful, calm way she had turned things around. She felt a deep sense of pride. She hadn't reacted with anger or shame. She had handled a delicate situation with grace, intelligence and love. Isai had learned a lesson she would carry for life: how to face cruelty without losing dignity, how to stand tall even when others try to bring you down, and how self-respect and preparation could triumph over mockery. Alma smiled, thinking about her daughter's bright eyes and the quiet confidence that now glimmered in them. That Christmas party was more than just a holiday gathering. It had become a moment of transformation, a story about courage, love, and protection. Alma realized that standing firm in the face of disrespect wasn't just about one night. It was about showing the people you care for that their worth can never be diminished by others. And in that knowledge, both Alma and Isai found strength, pride, and a bond that no insult or arrogance could ever shake.